think it's the idea that local people can manage and control their flooding risk themselves. Before the project started, I think flooding had become a very professional, very high-level thing which didn't engage local people.
So we actually managed to turn that on its head and get very disengaged communities engaged by using a community flood bus, which we took into all the small rural locations to create a huge spectacle, a buzz of excitement. And as a result of our engagement, we managed to train about 45 flood wardens. So from having no flood wardens, by the end of the project, we had 45 trained flood wardens, and I think that's a huge success.
I think one of the biggest successes in the Swindon project was how we created a flood action group in an area which was one of the most 10% deprived areas of the country, and they'd never been flooded before, and they were never given a voice to do with anything to do with flooding or anything really in their community before. So for us, a massive success was giving a community a voice where they've never had one before.
I think one of our greatest successes was our leaf litter project, which used individuals serving community payback sentences, what used to be termed probation sentences, in the community to clear the leaf litter from drains in 3 communities that were particularly vulnerable to flooding. Not only was this a success in terms of preventing floods, but it also had an added benefit in terms of those individuals actually doing the leaf litter clearance didn't reoffend, and the community actually came out and thanked them, so it actually had benefits beyond the actual flood risk.
A lot of the challenges associated with our project has been down to the necessary bureaucracy that we've got to go through in terms of procurement and putting paperwork through to our cabinet and to our political arm of the local authority.
One challenge for the Swindon project was perhaps that our aim or strapline was resilience through education, and quite a lot of that meant that people assumed that education was a top
Quite a lot of people
thing,
assumed
but it
that
didn't need to be like that. E-learning packages and lots of like videos and tools, and would then assume that the community would take it on board. And it was brilliant, but it doesn't work like that. Education is a two-way thing. So perhaps one of the challenges was changing the idea of education so that it therefore meant that people could learn from the community as well. So that took a bit of time to change partners' perceptions of what our aim really meant.
I think one of our greatest challenges across the county has been the getting information to individuals about their flood risk. I give it the term that so many people live in a bubble. They seem to not read newspapers, they don't listen to the local radio, and so actually the information that we're trying to put out it's actually very, very challenging to reach.
I think a piece of advice from the Swindon project was to make sure that when you're engaging with the community that you don't assume that you know who the community are. So in Swindon we were working in the east locality that was probably about 2 miles across, but within that there were so many different types of communities, so you could assume that there would be 1 or 2, but actually there were like 4 or 5, so you really need to get in there first and find out who your community is before you pigeonhole them into a certain category.
It takes time to develop up relationships, and you've got to develop that relationship initially, and you've got to develop it all the way through. So whilst our scheme has been about flooding during the 2 years or so over the time, it's very, very important to actually maintain that relationship. And what we did as well, we used the National Flood Forum, Sarah Parkinson, to actually be the brokering between us, the City Council, the United Utilities and the Environment Agency, and the actual residents on the estate, the flood group.
I think that the main piece of advice is that you have to take it at the pace of the community. These are community projects, and the one thing that communities hate is being told what to do. It has to come from the community. It's very much a bottom-up approach.
Well, my piece of advice would be to not get downhearted if people don't respond to your emails, don't return your telephone calls, aren't there when you knock the door. Just be persistent and passionate about what you do, and actually try to put over the passion and the fact that you really care and that you're committed to whatever project you're doing.